Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. It has been a tough week and a half in Kentucky weather. Historic and deadly flooding resulted from the unrelenting rains. Frankfort saw the water rise to within inches of an all-time record crest along the Kentucky River. The cleanup will take time, and a young life lost can never be replaced. But Frankfort and Franklin County officials have also seen their people come together to deal with the adversity. And joining us on Kentucky Newsmakers today from Frankfort are Frankfort Mayor Layne Wilkerson and Franklin County Judge Executive Michael Mueller. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We do appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time.
Absolutely.
Judge, many had never seen sites like this before last week, and then for others it took them back to 1997 or even 1978. How do you describe what your residents have been experiencing there?
Well, it's we're known as a river town. Obviously, the river comes right through the county and the city. Most of the time we know exactly what's going to happen. I think what was really tough about this situation is the numbers kept moving. And so, the people out in the county, they knew that the number was at, I think, 47, and most of their properties were okay. So they spent days ahead of time moving everything up to the next level where they knew it would be safe. And then what happened was it got changed. And then they called it to 49.5. So by the time we got the call at 5:30 in the morning, people weren't even awake yet. And so what happened was the roads were covered. It just came up so fast. So, as you said, the 97 flood, which I was living on the river then, I remember I got flooded, and that was at 45. So, to be within inches of the all-time record, it's been unbelievable.
Operationally, I know some of the courthouse offices had to close for a time. There literally has been water in the courthouse. Are you able to work around that and resume normal operations?
No, not really. So for some reason, when they designed the courthouse and built it, all the files were in the basement. So the whole bottom floor was completely full of all the files. So once we realized the level was coming up at about 11:30 at night, we called 30 people in. I mean, everybody from jail inmates to attorneys to AOC staff. And basically, we spent hours just moving all the files to the third floor. And then the big issue is the electronics, the electric, and the elevator. So I talked to Judge Wingate earlier. And the way they're going to handle this until they get it figured out is they're going to kind of go back to the COVID model with a lot of Zoom. So it's going to be a long process, but I'm hoping by, I think, next Friday, they're going to kind of get back up and running.
Mayor Wilkerson, Frankfort is obviously important as the state capital, so a lot of Kentuckians relate to the situation there who wouldn't otherwise. It was just another town, also home to nearly 30,000 people. How challenging is it to try to keep things functioning?
Well, it is a challenge when the river gets this high. And as the judge said, we are a river town. We know what to expect at certain water levels, and people that live in those affected areas, whether you have a house or business, I think most people would know exactly what water level it needs to rise to before they need to evacuate. But this situation was a little bit different because of the projected crest. And over the weekend, it just kept increasing, and we were really concerned that it was going to get to a level where it would breach the flood wall, and that just overrun the flood wall at 51 feet. But as far as operationally, particularly in the downtown and the South Frankfort area, which is the neighborhood around the state capitol, it's been a challenge, and we're just now getting started on most of the work. And that, as the waters recede, now we're dealing with the mud and the yuck that comes from that. We're trying to keep the expectations manageable with our residents and let them know we are cleaning your streets, and that already has begun. But also that the dumpsters that we're going to provide, we're trying to get those on the ground as fast as possible, so that people can start to get in and clean their house out, because that's what people want to do. They want to get back to normal as soon as possible. We're trying to make that happen as quickly as possible.
Mayor, what was going through your mind as the water kept coming up and the forecast kept saying that it was going to be a worse situation than it appeared?
Well, with the technology today where you can actually view the maps of what it would look like at certain water levels, the inundation maps, there was a moment there Saturday night into Sunday where it was pretty stressful, because the nature of the forecast continued to rise, and we didn't know where it was going to stop. So the worst case scenario was going through our mind there for a time, and lots of residents would be underwater, including downtown. And we were preparing for the worst. So on Sunday, we got ahead of the game. Our first responders, police, fire. We also had some help from the National Guard, thanks to Kentucky Emergency Management, to help on the ground. We went door to door, and we made sure that everyone in potentially affected areas understood what was possible. And thankfully, as Sunday night came along, the forecast kind of leveled off and then went down a little. And we were somewhat relieved, but we're still dealing with nearly a record flood here in Frankfort.
Mayor, you signed documents to put a curfew in place for a time. Why was that necessary, and how did citizens react to that?
Well, initially it was, well, it still is, I guess, to ensure public safety and protect private property and allow our crews to get around at night more efficiently, because when the river floods like this, a lot of people want to come take a look at that, and it's a novel thing, and they don't get to see the river overflow its banks like it has. And plus, it also attracts people who may not have the best intentions, and we wanted to make sure that we give comfort to those who are not in their homes, that we are protecting their valuables, their residents, and that they could feel comfortable not rushing to get back. And also, we're going to continue that curfew for the time being, just in smaller areas of town, just for the places that are affected where people aren't in their homes at the present time.
Judge, I'll ask this question to you, and the mayor may also want to comment. Obviously, the death of 9-year-old Gabriel Andrews is heartbreaking. He was on his way to catch his school bus. His mother told reporters that she has been overwhelmed by the love that the community has had for Gabriel and has shown in this very difficult time.
Yeah, it's been a very, very difficult time for our whole community to see a tragedy like that. Especially when I started seeing pictures of the little boy. I know they had the funeral in Pikeville last night. We're planning on trying to do something as a community together in the next few weeks. But, unfortunately, it was just a fluke accident. They say he was a very cheerful boy, and he jumped over that moving body of water. Anytime it would get up, it was just a flash flood. But from what I've heard, that was just the kind of kid he was. So, our hearts go out to the mother, and I think he had a brother and a sister, and his entire school, and we're definitely mourning that, and we're trying to figure out how we can be there for them at this time.
Yeah, Mayor.
And on that tragic situation, and it's like the judge said, a fluke situation where the worst possible, unimaginable event as a parent. And the Frankfort community coming together to support the family, I understand that. And coming in, that happened on Friday, and then the next day we're talking about flooding. And the communities, our senses are heightened right now because of that. And we want to make sure that we don't go through that again here in the community. We're always preaching life safety in an event like this, and just want to make sure we don't lose any more of our community members. But the overwhelming support, I don't think that's surprising here. If you live in Frankfort, you understand that, and we're hearing that from the flood as well. We're getting lots of donations, volunteer requests, and we're trying to manage that as well.
Yeah. Well, life cannot be replaced, but certainly the damage can be replaced and cleaned up and so on. Buffalo Trace, I know it has extensive damage to its facilities, a very important employer and a tourist attraction over there, isn't it?
Yes, it is, very much so. I think they're doing about 750,000 visitors a year. So we've been in constant communication with them, and we are trying to navigate anything they need. But like a lot of people, they're in a very low-lying area, and there's still a lot of water on their campus. So we'll be there for them, but I know they're going to have a lot of cleanup to do. And we just, as the mayor said, we're a big community, but we're a small community in times like this. So the outreach has been unbelievable from not just Frankfort, Franklin County, the state, the nation. We've set up a community trust fund for anybody who wants to donate. Because people are struggling right now, but we're all just kind of working together.
Do both of you have confidence that the Frankfort area will get to the state and federal help that you may need to get through this in the long term?
I think so, and that remains to be seen. That we will be working closely with FEMA, with the state emergency management, and we're encouraging our residents to document everything as you clean up. We keep track of everything that you've lost. I know in city operations we're doing the same. We do intend to file for reimbursement from FEMA for city operations, but we also want to get to a level where we can help our individual residents file for assistance. So we're sure hoping, and I got to say, we wouldn't have the flood wall that we have here without federal assistance over 30 years ago. So we're grateful for that. That's the type of infrastructure investment that the city government at the time probably couldn't have managed on their own. And we're hopeful once this disaster is behind us that we can help mitigate future floods with federal assistance.
Both of you have been in office a relatively short time. I know, Mayor, you've done a term and starting on your second one, and this is the first term for the judge executive. What have you learned about the responsibilities that you have in a situation like this, and how the community can be counted on in a time like this?
So for me, that's one of the biggest things that has stood out. You know, when you run for a local election, and I'm a business owner, and I wanted to get involved and wanted to help lead our community, there's certain things you don't think of. First one being, first day I took office, there was 3 inches of rain. So the phone was ringing before I even made it in the office. And then I find out I marry people, and I do all kinds of fun things as this full-time position. But like I told the governor the other day, this is one thing never crossed my mind that I would ever have to deal with being a local elected official, such a storm like this. And I'm very thankful. We've had a great team, like the mayor said, and we couldn't thank Team Kentucky enough, and all the support and Red Cross and everybody, and they're really the ones that are helping do the work now. They're out doing assessments. Our biggest two things right now is electric and turn back on, and controlling the trash. But we just want to make sure everybody sticks together, and we come out of this stronger and better than ever.
Mayor, learning situation for you?
Well, early on in my first term, we had a major flood. I think maybe the fifth week on the job 4 years ago, and but there was something about this one that was dramatically more. There was more to it. And actually, this is the third major flood that we've had. But I think early on, I've now learned that it's all about communication and communication and communication, and making sure that the public knows that you're on top of it, and that you have the resources, and that if they need anything, that you can deliver on that. So I think that's the main thing. And managing expectations of the public as well, that's important. And we're going to continue to do that. And I think we're going to learn a lot through this one. And hopefully
we won't have to deal with it again.
Keep improving. And if we get those resilience funds from the federal government, hopefully we can make sure that this type of flood won't impact us as much in the future.
All right. Before I let you go, if we weren't talking about floods, there would also be other important topics to discuss. And Frankfort and Franklin counties, we said, very important to our Commonwealth. Mayor, there were some recent reports about challenges for the city's finances. Is remote work among the factors in that situation, and is it improving?
Yes, it is a factor, and it is improving, but it's still not back to where it was. And that's primarily driven by our largest employer, state government. They're not 100% back to full working in person here in Frankfort and Franklin County. Really, Frankfort is where we collect occupational taxes. That's a big driver of our budgets. Nearly 2/3 of our revenue is generated from occupational tax. Now, our revenues are back above where they were before COVID started, but if we were at full capacity, but personnel has gone up even more so, and I think that's the real problem right now. Now, the discussion that we've had over the last couple of weeks, it's meant to get ahead of the game and make sure that the public knows our reserves are healthy, our bonding capacity is healthy. We've made some strategic investments since I've been mayor over the last 4 years that have contributed to the expense column, but those have yet to pay off. Major commercial infrastructure investments also, that's going to generate more revenue in the future, but hasn't quite started paying dividends. But we're just trying to get out ahead of the game. The city has several levers that are available to us to generate revenue or lower expenses. And anyway, over the next 3 to 5 years, we should be get that back to squared up.
All right, Judge, closing thought on getting through this situation and the pride you take in running Franklin County.
It's a great question. So I just ask the community to be patient. We learned this morning that there's a lot of, it's not as easy as just getting people's electric on. If any of their meter base or electric meter was underwater, it will have to be replaced. And so a lot of our communities, especially in downtown, some out in our county also along Big Eddy and things like that, their services were in the basement. So people now are starting to realize that electrician's going to have to come in and replace a lot of things before the electric can come back on. So I just want people to realize that state laws, we're trying to keep people safe. There is electricity in the water currently in certain places because things are still turned on. Just trying to manage the trash too. So, I just want everybody to be patient. Everybody's excited to get back to their homes. I'm worried that some people are going to find out their homes are in bad shape. We had over, I think, 514 homes affected. And so, we're all in this together, and it's going to be weeks and weeks and months of working through this. And I just, we're all here for each other, and I'm glad the mayor and I are in these positions so we can kind of help guide people.
Judge Mueller and Mayor Wilkerson, thank you very much for being with us, gentlemen. I know it means a lot to the local residents there to see the two of you working together, and I'm sure that's the envy of many across our state to see community leadership coming together like that, and we appreciate you being with us today. Everybody stay with us on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. We'll be talking with Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey about the historic flooding when we come back. Welcome back now to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. What a tough stretch of Kentucky weather we've had, certainly with the icy cold winter and then the severe weather events that have followed. The most recent, the severe storms, and then the flooding that many are still dealing with. For WKYT Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey, it made for some long days and long nights, and he's joining us right now after hopefully a little rest, right?
A little bit here or there, but it's early in spring still.
That's true.
We got a ways to go.
Yeah. It was a really tough first few weeks and months of 2025.
It has been. I mean, what we just lived through is likely, Bill, our third billion-dollar disaster of this year already impacting Kentucky, with the snow and the ice storm back in January, the mid-February flooding, and now this latest round of severe weather and flooding that encompassed a lot of real estate across the entire region. The flooding back in February was focused more on eastern Kentucky. Some of us in central Kentucky got in on some of that. But boy, the floods this go around, devastating farther downstream toward the Ohio River.
Well, that rain last week that led to the flooding was because of a system that just wouldn't move along. Now, you had told us that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
How did you know that? What were we seeing?
You could see this pattern coming from a mile away because it's the clash of the seasons that had been setting up, Bill. We had springtime warmth across the south, almost summertime, and then winter trying to make a late season appearance in spring across the north. Here was the setup. Take a look at this graphic we've got to show how that boundary got into the Ohio River Valley. And it just slowed down. To the north of it, you had cold air. To the south of it, you had summertime. And a boundary that gets in and slows down is not terribly uncommon. What was uncommon about this, Bill, is it slowed down and it stuck around for about 5 days, leading to repeat rain and thunderstorms moving along the same areas all the way from Arkansas through Kentucky and into southern parts of Ohio, northwestern sections of West Virginia. That was a very potent setup that we were dealing with across the area. And in addition to the rounds of heavy rain, we had tornadoes. I think right now, Bill, as of our talk, we're up to approximately 13, 14 tornadoes that touched down just in Kentucky on that April 2nd and 3rd of last week.
And that was the big part of it too.
Yeah.
But it really was the rain that just kept coming and hit the major rivers, the Kentucky River and the Ohio River and so on, that became the story.
It was a 1 in 1,000 year event across central and western Kentucky.
Wow.
And that means we've had a lot of those recently, right? And people say, how can it be a 1 in 1,000 years? We're getting those frequently now, right? But that just means there's a 0.01% chance of an event like that happening in any given year. That's essentially what we're saying to people. That's a very low percentage where all of a sudden now you're getting more and more of these events. In western Kentucky, we had right at, I believe, 15.9 inches of rain from that system. Lexington, in a 3-day span, we picked up a little more than 8 inches of rain, where that already put us in one of the top 5 wettest Aprils on record. In 3 days, we did that.
Yeah.
So, and if we don't get another drop of rain, we're into the top 3 wettest Aprils ever if we don't get another drop between now and the end of the month.
Well, we probably have enough to do for the year, except that there's also this amazing propensity in Kentucky to have a lot of rain, and then it dries up and you can have a drought in August.
And then all of a sudden you break it with a tropical system that brings rain in here behind it. But that's kind of where we are right now with the extremes. We kind of bounce back and forth a little bit. But when you just look at the, at this recent event with the rainfall, it was the perfect storm, no pun intended on that, for flooding on the Kentucky River and the Ohio River.
You make the point, since 2021, Kentucky's had one major weather event after another. We had the tornadoes, the eastern Kentucky flooding, and then the last couple of years, event after event. Has something shifted?
The whole climate has changed. We are now seeing more and more of a severe weather frequency in our region, where years ago, if you look over the past, let's say, go back to 1995 or mid-90s, in a 20 to 30 year span, you're talking about overall the amount of severe weather instances in Kentucky increasing. Tornadoes are increasing. We're getting more than we did in the prior decades before that.
Sure.
Tornado Alley has almost focused farther to the east now in something that's known as Dixie Alley. It shows up from the Tennessee Valley and deep south. They call that Dixie Alley. Well, now that's become the primary player for tornadoes, where you're not getting as many as what we used to into Kansas, Oklahoma, maybe parts of Texas. That doesn't mean they still don't get their share. They do. It just means we're getting an inordinate amount locally compared to what we used to get. It's crazy to watch in the overall scheme of things.
Watch that kind of shift across the map.
Absolutely. And what that does now is it gives us more leeway in looking and saying, okay, when something looks like it could be an extreme event nowadays, where 20, 30 years ago you may look at something and go, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Now you look at it and say, okay, probably going to happen.
We used to also watch, and years ago I did some weather.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it coming out of the Texas Panhandle, and that was more the direction that we could watch things, and we didn't really see it happening until it was there.
Yeah.
Now it's like you can see something offshore in the Pacific, and it's like, well, this is going to rush across the country.
And it's where all these storms started from. And Bill, that is the advances we have made, the weather community has made in recent decades with satellites and radars that now literally encompass everywhere on Earth. Computer models are very sophisticated, where not the details of those, like what a weather app tries to give you as a detail, and every time a new computer run comes in every 3 hours, it changes the forecast 100 degrees from what it had before. But what we're doing is now we have better tools, more sophisticated. Our vision is getting better.
Yeah.
So we can see a little farther away now.
All right. A few seconds left.
Yeah.
Do the events of recent weeks give us any indication of what could be ahead?
I do think the pattern calms down for a little while, and I do think we ramp it right back up mid to late May. Got to watch for some big severe weather events then.
All right. Our Chief Meteorologist, Chris Bailey, thanks for stepping in.
Bill.
Appreciate it very much. Everybody stay with us in just a moment. Could there be a comeback for coal? Kentucky Newsmakers will continue. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. Could it be a comeback for coal, for miners, and the coal industry? President Trump long promised to boost what he calls beautiful coal to fire power plants and for other uses. Well, using his presidential authority, he said he is keeping that promise. Amber Philpott explains.
With miners alongside, President Donald Trump vowed an end to a war on coal.
The value of untapped coal in our country is 100 times greater than the value of all the gold at Fort Knox. And we're going to unleash it and make America rich and powerful again.
Under the orders, President Trump used his emergency authority to allow some older coal-fired power plants set for retirement to keep producing electricity. The goals? Meet rising U.S. power demand, promote coal and coal technology exports, and to accelerate development of coal technologies.
Our electric cooperatives in Kentucky understands the importance of reliable, affordable, and American-made energy, especially coal and natural gas.
The head of East Kentucky Power Cooperatives was invited to the White House to share the stage with the president.
Too many government leaders have pushed policies that have made our electric grid significantly less reliable and our energy too expensive.
The president's actions targeted regulations under former President Joe Biden's administration.
And we're going to give a guarantee.
Without any specifics, President Trump says his orders have safeguards to protect investments in coal should the next president want to undo them.
That if somebody comes in, they cannot change it at a whim. They cannot just they're going to have to go through hell to close you up.
Amber Philpott there with our story about the president's move on coal. That is Kentucky Newsmakers. We certainly appreciate you joining us. We hope you'll stay with us for the latest on air and online, WKYT.com, and on our WKYT News app. You can stream our newscasts whenever we're live. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you make it a good week ahead.